Well, a jolly fine April Fool's Day to you. Hello and welcome. Out there in the hazy distance here in Karachi, Pakistan is the Mighty Dash, of course. And we are at a very nice custom-made airport that I paid very good money for, but that seems to have a little problem with blending here and there. We've got either white paint or snow on the ground or some funky polygons or something going on. There's a lot of other good stuff going on, but there's a little bit of a blending problem. And I don't really blame the developers for this, because this is for prepared version 2 and we're in prepared version 3, so you sort of take what you can get. The other thing you take when you can get it, or if you can only get it, as we sit down there and look at the Mighty Dash, is some limitations in our navigational database. So, as we pop inside, ordinarily, we're flying to Mumbai today, and ordinarily we would put in a SID, because as you can see from our Navigraph charts, there are lots of SIDs, and we're going to be flying the Nancy 3A. Problem is that not one single SID seems to be in the database, even though I just updated it again from the nice folks at Navigraph. So we're just going to do it by hand here. It is not going to be programmed into the FMC. Instead, it is going to be programmed into my tiny little head. But basically, if you look at the narrative for the SID, it's pretty simple. We're going to take off from runway 25 left. And so that SID, which is the Nancy 3A, calls for a left turn to 180 degrees at 1,000 feet, whence we will intercept the 145 radial of Karachi, and we will take it to Nancy. Now, Nancy is a fix. It's an intersection, but there's really no way on the chart to locate that intersection except by doing this, except by looking at this arc here and seeing that Nancy is just shy of 25 miles from KC. So that's how we do it. Actually, it is, if you look at the segment here, it's 24. So we will fly 24 DME from Karachi, from KC, which is 112.1. We're going to check to make sure that's programmed into our arc due, 112.1, and it is. And you'll notice two things. Thing one is we're not set up for pink needles, even though we've got the rest of our route programmed into the FMS, and you see there's a magenta line, or a pink line. Instead, we're in blue needles, and we have tuned in the 145 radial, 112.1, which is Karachi, and you'll see we've also got an RMI needle, which is pointing straight to Karachi. And so I'm realizing at that point that is wrong. That RMI needle should be pointing from Karachi. So I've done something terribly wrong. No, that's right. We should be on the one. We're set up for a heading of 120, and we should intercept 145, but what will happen is this will be 145 going away. So what we're going to do actually is I see what it is. We're 4/10 of a nautical mile beyond the station, which happens to be back there. So what we're going to do, all right, now I see what's going to happen. We are going to fly up to 1,000 feet. We're going to loop back around this way. We're going to re-intercept, and then we're going to fly outbound for 24 miles. All right, you see, leave it to a pinhead like me to take a simple thing and make it complicated and screw it up at the same time. So otherwise, we're ready to go. We're fueled. Our pumps, auxes, auto feather are on. Let me just set our stabilizer trim. That is set. Gust lock is off. Props max. Flaps set. V-speed set. Heats are on. Lights are on. Bleeds are on min. Caution panel is clear except for the parking brake. So we will remove the parking brake. We'll see that our caution panel is clear, and what we're going to do is we're going to fly runway heading till we get to 1,000 feet. At 1,000 feet, we are going to pull back the props as well, and then we're going to make a left turn to 120. And what I've done is here. Let's be extra special, tricky here. Not sure whether this is kosher, but we're going to try it. We're in heading select mode right now. You can see the flight director is deviated that way. If we were doing this really right for real, we would instead have our heading set on runway heading. Our flight director would thereby be centered. We would fly that, and then when we got to 1,000 feet, we would spin this around to 120, where ideally we would say to our first officer, our pilot not flying, whoever that might be. If we were the first officer flying, we'd say, set the heading bug to 120, or possibly we would just reach up with our right hand and do that. But since I'm flying with my right hand on a joystick, not my left hand on a yoke, I can't reach up with my right hand or with my right mouse and adjust the heading bug. So what we're going to do is we are going to fly straight ahead in our tiny little brains. We're going to have this set for the heading we want to turn to. It is in heading select mode, but we're also going to be extra tricky, and we're going to see if we can also set it in nav mode, which will acquire the VOR. Now we're going to do this hand flying, so we're not going to be trusting the autopilot anyway, so we can always get this right on our own if it doesn't start to look kosher. So with that, I'm going to start the clock here, and we will advance our power levers, see that we're stable, come off the brakes, set takeoff power, see that it's set, see that our auto feather is armed. We'll maintain the center line here. We'll look for 80 knots. We've got it. We'll look for V1 and rotate. And we're accelerating very smartly, so we will. Okay. V1 and rotate. Pull ourselves up to the magenta line. Positive rate and gear up. Look for 1,000 feet. Start to bring up our flaps because we can. I should be flying runway heading. Now I am. Looking for 1,000. It's coming up pretty quickly. Here we come. Bring back our props. Turn to 120. Now we can use our flight director. And let's pop ourselves into nav mode and see whether we can acquire that radial. Our speed is fine. Can nose down slightly. I can set IAS mode. We're turning to 120. We're not there yet. Just trimming down a little bit. I'll set IAS mode there. That's reasonable. And now, once we hit 120, I'm sorry, 120, we'll roll wings level. And yeah, there we go. Now let's see if we acquire. I'm just going to reset IAS mode, so we're climbing a little bit higher speed. And now we'll wait for our radial to come in. And you can see we're already pointing away from the station. Our to from triangle there has gone to from. Just retrim a little bit here. In a second, as soon as we get on this radial, I'll pop in the autopilot, and we will, from there, clean up the airplane. Turn off the auto feather, turn off our pumps, things like that. We're already at 5,000 feet. And we're already 4 miles away. And let us adjust our heading and intercept that radial a little bit more sharpishly. 1,000 away. And of course we're turning right into some convective activity. Alright. Turn on our autopilot. And there we go. It's got the lock on the VOR. And it should be leveling us off. And it is. That's going to bring our speed up. Got a caution. Don't know what that is. But we've just acquired... you know what? Our flaps are stuck. And that is an FSU IPC problem. Alright, they're up. And we'll just roll off a little bit of power for the moment. And we're going to fly this another 16 miles. And the whole time we're going to stay at 7,000. Square up our bug. And we're going to be flying to Nancy. That's about right. Bring back the power a little bit more. This is a highly powered aircraft, so... Alright, there's 10, so we're 14 away. And as you can also see, we happen to be heading straight for Nancy. And as you can also see, we are dead bang on. So, bravo for us. Now let me just see what our next waypoint is. It is going to be Sapna. And after Nancy, we can climb up to our cruising altitude. So you see, this is how they did it in the old days before FMSs. Okay, we're 10 miles away from Nancy. And actually, look at that. Our FMS tells us we're a little less than 10 miles away from Nancy. So, our blue and our pink agree. Our narrative and our heads agree. Everything looks cool, so let's do this. Off with the auto feather. Off with our pumps and auxes. Upstairs we go. Bleeds can come to normal. Our lights can come off. We are above our transition altitude, so we can set standard, which is going to affect our altitude very slightly. And we're now 6 miles away. See? 6 miles on the DME and 6 miles on the GPS, as it were. And we'll roll off a little bit of power here. We're going to be climbing again in very short order. What I want to do is I want to see if I can preset my IAS. I'll bet you I can. and we'll set it to 200. So what'll happen is we will glitch. I had 7,000 in the window, but I didn't have outcell set, so it climbed us. As soon as we set our IAS mode, it climbed us. So obviously we don't want that. We do want that. And we're now 2 miles away. So for all intents and purposes, now we can climb. But let me just see if I can preset when I'm in altitude hold mode. Let me see if I can preset an IAS, and no, you see, I can't do it without it climb. No, it holds it. Does it hold it? Yeah, it holds it. All right. But now what we can do is we can spin our altitude up, bring our power levers forward, and watch what happens. No, it doesn't do it. It doesn't let you arm it and then make it go, so instead you have to set it while you're doing it. So alright, fine. So we're going to climb at 100 and 200 knots, that's fine. Still in max climb, we'll set the altitude for flight level 270, because we got a ways to go and weather to get above, and that's about as high as we can go legally. Outcell is armed. We're climbing at a nice rate. Retrim the rudder. Bim bam boom. There we go. And let us now get into direct to Sapna, and what we can do is we can switch our nav source over, and it's going to turn us to Sapna. And to be totally honest, we did it about 3 miles late because we were busy futzing with that, so we should have at 24 immediately switched over to pink needles. It was still sequencing us, and it would have just automatically turned us. Instead, we ended up blowing past by about 3 miles. So, of course, this is the heading we're going to end up at. So, there we go. Not by too much, because you saw I didn't have to do a lot of work to reacquire, but you know, it was less than optimal. Okay, our weather radar is on. Everything else looks good. What you witnessed with the flaps is sometimes with FSU-IPC, when you first start the plane, you have to cycle through the flaps, because otherwise the switch for flaps up doesn't do anything, and the switch for flaps down actually pops them up a notch. So you just have to sort of cycle one way and then the other, and then it'll do what you want. So I went and retracted the flaps, and they did not come up. And once we crossed 200, we got this caution here. Luckily, we didn't go faster than about 205, 210. I guess it was a little less than 210. Otherwise, we could have damaged the flaps, but we didn't, so we're good. And I think that sort of concludes the even remotely interesting part of the beginning of the flight. So what we'll do, as is custom, is we'll pick it up towards the end of the flight and fly an interesting little approach into, at the moment, what is a very foggy Mumbai, which will be pretty cool if the fog holds. Not much wind. It's going to be a pretty decent arrival. Let me just see what the conditions are right now. Okay, foggy. Well, clouds few at 2,000, but there's probably fog below that. I'm guessing. Let's see. Visibility is only 2 miles, which isn't a ton, which would suggest that maybe, just maybe, we will have a nice HUD hand-flown arrival, because I'd give myself a B- on the last one coming in, so we want to be looking at least for a B+ coming into Mumbai, and perhaps we'll get it. So with that, I will leave it there, and I will, as they say, see you on the other side. And from just about any angle with her humped wing root and compound dihedral wing and enormous T-tail and perfectly round fuselage section and pointy nose, the Mighty Dash looks just plain weird, but also just plain wonderful. We are getting close to top of descent for Mumbai, and I don't know why the sound cuts out whenever we pop inside, but I think there is a way around that. The problem is then sometimes you get your outside sounds inside. I have to take that up with the Majestic people. It's an interesting maybe bug, maybe subtlety I don't know about, and I'm not sure. But anyway, we were going to come in on runway 9, but the winds have shifted. We're going to come in on runway 27, and the way we come in on runway 27 is we're going to come in from right about here, and then we're going to fly a DME arc around here. It's actually, well, it is technically a DME arc. It's an arc around the Bombay. See? So we could technically fly this without the FMS by just using our DME and maybe an RMI needle, keeping it pointed off our wing. You know, maybe we'll try that and see how that turns out. See how, as Rich at Flight Sim 481 says, see how we get on. Alright, we'll try that. So it is looking at our narrative here. It is, does not say. Let's see, the distance is, does not say. Okay, well, let's see where our intermediate fix is, and we find that right here. And our intermediate fix, I believe it's a 12-mile arc. Anyway, our runway has a slightly displaced threshold here, so we're going to have to adjust our HUD. Pappies are on the left. That's what this means. Elevation's 23, so 23 and 9,000 feet. So let's do that very quickly. Let's see where our TOD is, by the way. Well, that's nice. There we go, 11 minutes. All right, we've got time. So, new elevation is, once again, 23 and 9,000, so. And enter. Now our elevation. Have to click that twice to get it. 2, 3. Enter. Glide slope is fine. Now our approach course is going to be, instead of 091, is going to be 271. Alright. Hold down the format key again. Set that. Done. And we'll set it on the right hand side and make that 271 as well. Now this is only a Cat 1 approach. There don't seem to be any Cat 2 approaches to Chhatrapati Shivaji International Airport in Mumbai. So our minima are 210. Rad alt, so we'll dial that in. And let me see if I can confirm that it's a 12-mile arc somehow. Let's see if the star shows it. No, because the RNAV stars are different. And we are not flying an RNAV star here. Our RNAV star would be much, much simpler. We'd fly the Pokan 1A, and in we'd come, and around we'd go, but we want to fly the arc because it's fun. Alright, I'll bet you dollars to donuts it's 25. Star's arrival north. Let's see what we got. 16-mile arc, it looks like. That's where all these fixes are. 16. Let's see if we can find out from our FMS. This is really me being stupid more than anything else. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to tell us. Here, watch. Yes, it's a 15-mile arc. Okay, well that's easy enough. It's just me being an idiot. So what we'll do, we've already set our final heading that we need to intercept, which is our localizer. And we will use our nav2, and we'll be in heading select mode. So first thing we're going to do is we will fly the VNav, which will get us to the point before the arc, which is right over there is where we should do it. Actually, let's do D314Q if we can. VNav, yes we do, 3700. Not sure why that's not in the flight plan, but let's just put it there as a reminder. Alright, there's our VNav, 7 minutes away. 3,700 feet is set. If I were a real aviator, I would fly our descent manually. Matter of fact, let's fly a chunk of it manually. I need to really bone up on pitch and power and maintaining a nice descent. And one way to do that will be to hand fly this sucker down. So, in the words of Kinky Friedman, why the hell not? Just will entail us getting a little bit more prepared sooner. Fasten seatbelt signs are already on. Let's just find out our weather. At Chhatrapati Shivaji International. Alright, I'm working on that. I'm probably mangling the pronunciation. We got a 9-knot wind and 2988, so we'll set that in our standby. There we go. We've got our altitude set. We're in VNav mode. Set our V speeds before it's too late. It's going to give us 126. We'll make the V app 131 plus 5, 136, counting for the wind. And our decision height is set. And we are tuned in. You know what? We're not tuned in for the right localizer. That's no good. We're tuned in for the old localizer. That would have been a problem. Alright, 110.3. So let's put that in our arc-do. That could have caused us no end of grief. Alright, 116.6 is Bombay. That's going to be the radial we're going to be flying. And 110.3 will go in the standby for the right side. And 271 is set, so that's good. There's our TOD. Just make sure this radial is off of Mumbai, which is still BBB for Bombay, which is the anglicized version of it. Which is odd since English has been one of the many official languages of India for the last umpteen years, so it's odd there should be an anglicized anything. Especially when you consider all the things that have been brought into the English language by way of India. So it's one of the few happy legacies of colonization. There are many unhappy ones, some unintended ones. Some legacies we're all living with today, which are probably less than welcome. But one of the happy ones is little mingling of languages in ways that are interesting. Words like hugger-mugger and helter-skelter and things like that, they're not really words, but phrases, come from a sort of borrowing from India, which are formally known linguistically, believe it or not, as Hobson-Jobson. You can see why. But the other thing that is, of course, borrowed from India, especially for Great Britain, including Indians, of course, is it's pretty much the most popular takeout food on Earth, except maybe Chinese. So, which is making me hungry just thinking about it. And the artwork, and the calligraphy, and the philosophy, and Gandhi, and a million other things. And amazing creatures and amazing people, and someplace I've only visited by way of my Indian friends coming here instead of me going there, so shame on me. But we will visit it virtually, at least today. So in a second, instead of keeping the autopilot engaged, not sure why I can't engage my VNAV mode. That's interesting. Our altitude is set. Our VNAV is enunciating. I can certainly engage vertical speed mode, but I don't want to. I want to engage VNAV mode. And I cannot. Yet this is here, so I should be able to. Very interesting. I'm going to adjust the altitude. going to go back to Alt Star, adjust the altitude again. I'm going to click on VNav, and it will not engage. Alright, well, here's what we'll do. We'll instead use the V2 function, and we want to go to 314Q, and it's telling us we have to go down at about 1,600 feet per minute. Alright, fine. We can do that, so let us do that. Vertical speed, 1,600. It's going to start us down, of course. Well, now that's interesting. It's captured it, but we're not in that mode. Very interesting. Let's see if it flies it. No, I don't think it is. Alright, so what we'll do is we'll use V2. First we'll roll off some power before we overspeed. And, hey, we might be flying more manually than we wanted. Alright, so we'll go back into V2. And it says we need to be going down about 1,800 feet per minute, so we'll do that. We'll take out the autopilot. We'll roll off some power. And try and trim ourselves a little bit. And we'll keep one eye on our flight director needle, and another, as I just said, our trim a little bit. There we go. And another on our on our VNav path. Let's first stop ourselves from being quite so laterally deviated. Trim up a little bit. Trim the rudder a little more. Alright, now I'm slightly above profile and drifting ever so slightly to the right. I was trying to establish a stable descent at a little faster than the speed will bring a little more power. Alright, there we go. Trying. Okay. We're maintaining a fairly constant rate coming down. Just trimming just to relieve a little bit of this back pressure from my yoke, my stick. I like to have the slightest bit of back pressure on it because it makes me aware of what I'm doing. But and now I'm following more the VNav path. I don't know why I'm trusting this VNav path, but I'm either going to use it directly or indirectly, so I might as well follow that needle. It's just I'm trending wrong here. And for some reason I still can't enter VNav mode. For a moment I'm going to engage the autopilot here. Let me just come down a little bit more. There we go. And adjust our vertical speed a little bit so I can stay on profile here. Bring up the power a bit as well. And I'm just going to fiddle around with this for 1 second. See if I've got any discontinuities that are preventing me from doing it. I don't think there are. That's interesting. Autopilot's in. VNav is enunciating. I've got no discontinuities. Huh. Is this thing doing it? Now let's see if we can do it. Nope, that's not it either. Alright. Just spool in a little more power here. Trim out the rudder a little bit. Keep us on profile at least. I am really totally unsure why that's happening. Let me see, what else could it be? We have an altitude below the altitude we want to go. We seem to have a legitimate point to go to. Oh, that's interesting. We've just given ourselves a new top of descent. Oh, this is great. Alright, now we have to do the whole thing manually. So we're 45 miles away. No, it's just gonna start us over again. But again, it's not letting us do it. Make sure we're in the right FMS. We are. "45 miles to come down 13,000 feet looks pretty sane to me. We're coming down a little bit slowly. We can come down a little bit faster. And I still don't get it. We'll see if this comes in again, and you know what? Let's do this. Let's humor it here. Let's level off, and let's see if it picks up our top of descent again, and at least gives us that guidance. I don't know why I'm trusting it though at this point, but I'm cross-checking this versus how far we need to go and how far we need to get down, and it all seems reasonable. We need to come down 11,000 feet, and we've got almost 40 miles to do it. That seems right. There's our arc right there. We have now captured our VNav path again. And again, we cannot set our VNav. Well, that's just dandy. Alright, well, we'll just do it by hand. Down we shall go. And it'll ask us for about 18, so we'll do about 18. 18, there we are. All right. Let's make this happen. You know what? Screw this. Screw this, screw this, screw this. Let's get our asses down manually. Put down about 1900 feet per minute. Roll off some power so our ground speed goes down. Reduces our requirement to descend. Reduces the rate of descent we need to do a nice normal glide path. Let's put ourselves into heading mode. We're going to look for 15 DME for Mumbai for VABB. As a matter of fact, we're going to look for 17 and we'll make our turn. And we're going to do the whole damn thing manually. Screw all this crap. Alright, into heading select, flip over our nav source. That's our localizer. That is our Bombay. We're going to make a left turn. And we are going to fly the arc by hand, because why the hell not? When you have a recalcitrant airplane, that's what you need to do. So we want to be at 3,700 feet, and we need to be at 3,700 feet 20 miles from now. We can do that easily. Scale out this. I will arm our approach. And now we are just going to pretend we don't have an FMS, but what I'm going to do first is bring out a little more power. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set our altimeter to 988. And let's slow our, well, we can't slow down any more than that. We are 31 miles away, so we can shallow out our descent, and that will slow us down automatically. Also, turn on our pumps and auxes, bring our bleeds to min, get our lights on, check our heats, they're fine, cabin altitude is fine. And there we go. Now I will cheat a little bit. I will use this just slightly as a crutch. Alright, so we're 28, so we're 14 miles away. 12 miles away from where we're going to turn, more or less. And let's just correct for the wind here. Set a heading a couple degrees. About there should do it. In essence, we're going to put this needle right over that. And that'll correct for the wind. Alright, that should do it. Alright, DME 25, so we're 9 miles away. Come down a little faster than that. Not managing power well either. So again, just to recap, what we're going to do is we're going to stick this thing right there. And we're going to just make sure that we are 15 miles away on this DME the whole time until we intercept our localizer. So 6 miles till our turn, give or take. And we've got 2,000 feet to come down. Roll off the power. Little thunder bumpers going. Alright, we are tracking inbound nicely. 5 miles away from our turn, or make it 4.5. And we've got 1,000 feet to go. And we've got scenery loading as well. Alright, we'll start to level off right there. And we won't turn quite yet. Okay, 18 miles. Let's start to turn. Now again, we're aiming for 15 miles on the DME, and we're aiming to hold that. Now you notice how our RMI needle deflects. Bring in a little bit of power. Okay, we're 16.4. Going a little slow, but I don't want this to go too fast either. Okay, 15.8. I think we may be a little bit inside it. I'm slowing down so I can make this turn. 15.3. Alright, we can do this. 15. Alright, now let's correct a little bit to the outside. We've got a little bit of wind blowing us in also, so we'll correct for that. Alright, 14.8. That's fine. The procedure generally allows for about a mile tolerance, I think. Alright, so there, the RMI needle is now perpendicular to the station. We're actually going to fly this heading just a little bit more outbound and widen ourselves out a little bit, because the wind is blowing us in, and we turned a little bit late. So there's 14.8. And we will anticipate it a little bit. So what we're going to do is, in a second, we're going to adjust our heading by 10 degrees. Okay, there we go. Start our turn. Okay. Okay, we're right at 15. And we're at about 186 knots. That's fine. Okay. Start our turn. Another 10 degrees. Okay, there we are. That's going to put us just a little inside, so we'll flatten it out. In reality, you don't fly these things as one graceful arc. You generally fly them as a collection of arc segments, I suppose you'd call them. Alright, so we'll fly straight for another second or two. And now the needle is just a little bit ahead of us, so we'll give it another 5 degrees. There we go. A little bit inside it, shallow it out. And we're just coming on around. Now we're going to exit this arc. Let me just fly outbound a little bit here. I'm going to exit this arc at the 2082 radial. So let's fly this outbound a little bit. So we're going to exit it when we're about there. In other words, when we're at about a heading of 262. Okay, gave us another 10 degrees of turn. We're doing very nicely. The other way to do this is to do this with your HSI and to continually turn it and twist it and let the needle cross, and turn it and twist it and let the needle cross. But since we've got a perfectly good DME right here and we've got a perfectly good RMI right there, it makes flying this almost easy. Alright, we're going to set our next altitude as well, although we're not going to go to it yet, which will be 2900. And again, we're not doing anything with that. Just have to watch out, because when I spin my heading bug around, it is on a hat switch, and it's on the horizontal axis of it. The vertical axis controls my nose up or nose down. So watch out for that. I'm just going to fly this heading for another minute or two because we're just slightly inside the arc. Now bear in mind that usually these things are designed to protect you from stuff on the outside of the arc, so if you're slightly inside the arc, I guess you could say you're reasonably safer than not. Alright, another 10 degrees or so. And let's retrim our rudder. There we go. Just loafing along at about 190 knots, that's fine. Nice leisurely little spin around the DME arc. Again, we got some wind blowing us inward into the arc. At some point that is going to shift around and it will blow us outward to the left of our approach course. And round we come. Now, again, we're going to look for this needle to be hitting about there, which will put us on an intercept, as you can see, to our localizer. And actually at this point, just give us a little more turn. At this point, let's start to come down to 2900. Okay, we're just about perfect on our arc. You can see it's pretty darn foggy. Speed is creeping up a bit though, so let's just keep that in check. And yeah, we're looking really good. And we're about 10 degrees away from flying an intercept to our localizer. There's the glide slope. And let us... you know what? Let's try and fly this by the book. So let's turn now to intercept. We've captured our altitude. We're slowing down. We'll put in a notch of flaps. There we are. Get ourselves in nav mode. Try and grab that loc. That will do us. Looking really nice. I'm just going to set ourselves up for reduce noise profile. We're good there. 1 and 2. Just about the right speed. Got an FMS message, which probably is just that our VNav is disconnected, and that's fine. There is our glide slope. Let's pop it into approach mode. Okay, it's got the localizer. We'll set our heading now to runway heading. And in 1 scant second, it's going to grab the glide slope. At which point, I will declutter the HUD. And
2500.
Bring in a little more power. And in a second, we should be going downhill. Like right now. Okay, speed is coming up. Let's bring down the gear. Reduce the power. There's the outer marker. Bring out some more power. We'll bring it back up in 1 second. We've got a crosswind from the right. Okay, we can bring out our second notch of flaps. And now, in 1 second, our third notch of flaps. There we go. Let me just quickly check on that. We're good there. Alright, now we just have to slow. Out comes the autopilot. In comes the pilot. Trimming up a little bit to slow us down. I'm going to slowly creep a little more power in. There we go. A little bit hot. A little bit of a headwind. I don't want to get too low energy no matter what. I'd rather be a little fast and a little slow. Wow, that was a nice little gust. Okay.
1000.
We are very nice. Okay, we're bringing some power now. Well, that's about right. Look at where our nose is. That's perfect. little excess speed. And ever so slightly high. Getting buffeted around something fierce.
500. Plus 100.
Well, this is an example of where the nav aid
Minimums.
does
Minimums.
not line up. Oh, neither does the lighting with, that's classy.
100.
With the scenery.
50. 40. 30. 20. 10.
All right, well, we're down. And it looks like we just sunk below the runway there. Looks like we had 2 runways. Yeah, we've got some canyons and elevation issues here. All right, well, I'm not going to taxi to the gate, and I've got a built-in excuse for why the runway was offset from our nav aids, but other than that, it was a thing of beauty. It looks like we're about a few feet underground here. Let's see what it looks like from the outside. Yeah, okay, well, yeah, we seem to be right about, the water line is right about there. Well, at least nothing crashed, but all right, well, that's as pretty a picture as you're going to get. It's certainly a beautiful looking terminal. Hi, I'm under asphalt here. Well, the Mighty Dash is capable of almost anything, but I wish I could get a refund on the scenery, but I don't think I can. Anyway, in the meantime, we will depart from here and probably disable this scenery or fix our problem. But anyway, with the Mighty Dash 20 feet underground, we will bid you adieu from Mumbai. Our next stop is probably Delhi, or someplace thereabouts, and then I think into the Himalayas. So, as always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.